Three things that if I had to start over in my business, I do want to caveat whenever I share things like this. There, I actually believe that everything that happened, the mistakes that I made and everything, I needed to make because you know that saying you learn more from your failures and your mistakes than your successes? I absolutely agree with that. And only through making these mistakes did I realize that they were mistakes. And they made me a better business person and a business coach and a better teacher. And so to be honest, the truth is if I had to go back and do it all over again, I don't know that I would change anything. However, that being said, these were definitely things I probably could have spent less time. These are mistakes I could have spent less time making, maybe, for sure. All right, so let's talk about the three that I want to share with you today. So the first one that I really think of a lot is basically a lot of hiring decisions that I made out of a place of fear. And so here's what I mean by that. I am such a fan of investing in yourself, of continual learning, of investing in mentors, learning, education, whatever it is that you need or want to invest in yourself to grow. That being said, there's a big difference in hiring someone because it feels exciting. You are excited to learn from them and you see the potential for where you could grow, versus hiring someone because you are afraid that if you don't hire them, you're not going to be able to figure it out on your own, or you're going to miss out on this once in a lifetime opportunity to learn something or do something. Really big difference, right? And so I will say there were quite a few times when I did hire out of fear, especially early on in my business. And I mean, yes, there was excitement about what can I learn with this person? What can I do? But often it was, I'm afraid I won't be able to do it on my own. I'm afraid I won't be able to figure it out on my own. And so some examples I'm thinking of, I mean, this is true both for just people I hired to work with me and for people I hired as coaches and mentors. And I'm thinking of one example. So as you guys may or may not know, one of my weaknesses that I've always really struggled with is sales copywriting, or just copywriting in general. I shared before how in the beginning of my business, I would spend 2-3 hours staring at a blank screen to write an email and then still not be able to come up with anything. I've shared before how, how we're trained in corporate to speak and talk a certain way, like a phrase that I see nowadays a lot. And I smile because I remember when I used to write that all the time, like, please advise, right? Nobody talks like that in real life. And so I struggled with sounding like myself, even though I wasn't trying to be someone other than myself. I was just writing the way that I'd been trained to in school and at work. And so with all of those things, and also I had no sales training, so I just assumed, hey, I'm not super witty with words. I'm really slow with this. I'm not great with sales stuff. And so I hired out a lot of my sales copywriting relatively early on in my business. And what ended up happening, and so that was hiring out of a place of fear, right? Not of excitement, not of like this feeling of being empowered with, hey, I'm outsourcing because this is the right next step for me. So there's a big difference. Definitely hire, outsource, do those things when it's the right time, but know if it's the right time versus if you're doing it just because you're afraid, right? And with those times, actually what happened and what I found every single time I've hired out of fear is that it does not work out well, right? Because you are kind of tunnel vision in your hiring decision, even where you're thinking, okay, this person can do it better than me. Let me just get this person. You're kind of hiring out of a negative, desperate energy a little bit versus, hey, I'm positive, I'm confident, this person is going to help me just do even better and grow even faster. And so, I mean, that cost me so much money on just, for example, copywriters alone, where I would think that they could do it better than me. Then I would look at the results they brought me and I would have to say, okay, this is not, I actually can do better. Let me do it again. And I would repeat the cycle. And it took me quite a few times to learn this, right? And so, I mean, I've seen this happen for clients and students over the years in so many different ways with different coaches. I've definitely done that. There are coaches I've hired for 5 to 6 figures out of a place of fear. And I definitely learned things from them. So, it worked out, but it just wasn't the best experience. I probably could have, hired different mentors or mentors who I would have clicked better with or learned more from if I hadn't been thinking, oh, I need to hire this person because if I don't, I'm not going to be able to figure it out. The place of scarcity and fear as well. And so there's that piece. And then also I see this happen a lot as well, which is becoming more and more common where my students or clients or just newer entrepreneurs in general will hire someone to set up a funnel for them or someone to manage their ads for them from very early on in their business. Now, there's a time and place for things like that, but when you're starting out and you're making those hiring decisions out of a place of fear because you're afraid you can't figure it out yourself, or because you're afraid basically because you're afraid you can't figure it out for yourself or you can't handle it, it usually ends up working out poorly. I actually have never seen it work out well when the hiring decision was made from that place, or an investing decision, investing in a coach, mentor course, whatever, because like I said, you have that tunnel vision. You're thinking, is this going to work for me? And it just sets you up for so much disappointment and failure. And then you're out money, you still don't have the results that you wanted. And then you have to go and figure it out yourself anyways. Right. And so that I would say is the first thing that stood out. And I'm thinking of a couple of times when that happened. It took me quite a few times to learn this. I have to say one of the things that if I could actually redo is just really be more open to learning from my mistakes faster. I feel like I always have to make a mistake, not once, but maybe 3-4 times before I'm like, oh, wait, maybe this is a mistake and I shouldn't do it. Right. So, it is what it is. But that is definitely one of the top ones that really stands out for me. So whenever nowadays I make a hiring decision or I make an investment decision, right, I always ask myself, why do I want to do this? Is it because I'm afraid, or is it because I'm excited and I'm looking to grow? And that has made a really big difference for me, especially in about the last 2 years. It's saved me a lot of money, right? It's prevented me from overpaying for things because I was just scared I couldn't get them or myself or get a better price and removed a lot of that desperate kind of negative, I need to make this hiring decision energy, and shifted it to, hey, if I'm hiring someone, we're going to be excited about it. If I'm investing in someone's mentorship or a mastermind or whatever, I'm doing it from a place of, hey, I'm going into it knowing this is how I'm going to make the most out of it. Makes a big difference. Thing number 2 is money related. So there's so much to talk about money. I'm just going to share one thing that really stood out for me, which is, as you guys know, and I've talked about this before, as you guys know, first of all, I grew up in a very standard middle class family. My father was the only one who worked, and so his salary had to support him, my mother, my sister, and me. And it wasn't a super high salary, right? And so we had to be really frugal. And even though, by the way, my parents, I have no idea how they did it, but they were super frugal. They always found the money that we needed to invest in our education. And I just remember when I was little thinking, oh man, right? What would it be like to actually have enough money to not have to worry about not being able to go to the movies, being able to go on vacation? I've shared this before. One of the things that when I was little, I really had this kind of this block, this kind of inferiority complex around was the fact that I went to college at Princeton, which has a lot of wealthy students from wealthy families. Like in my class, there was a Rockefeller, a Forbes, a Whitman, right? And so that gives you an idea of kind of this whole new world I was put into when I went into college. And so I remember thinking, whoa, right? It's a whole different place. All these people are talking about all the places they've traveled, what it's like to have money. And it's just so different from the way I've been raised to think about money. And so what that did, I didn't know anything about money mindset back then. I didn't have a ton of money management skills because my parents' attitude when I was growing up was, we don't talk about money. We don't talk about budgets. You don't need a budget. Just be super frugal and, that'll work itself out. And so what happened was I was definitely super focused on making money. Really, for a large part of my life, because I was thinking, I'm going to make this money. I'm going to be able to take care of my loved ones. The people I love are never going to need to worry about money again. And so I was coming from a good place. But that being said, when you have that kind of mentality around money that I just described, what happens is once you start making a little bit of it, it just completely throws you out of whack, especially if you aren't prepared to handle it. And so what I did is in my first year in this business, I crossed over $1 million in sales. And so that brought in a good amount of cash. And I went and had a party. Let's just put it that way. And whenever I share this story, I share, I lost most of the money, I'm always very specific about the wording I use. It's not like I lost the money that I made my first year. I wasted it, right? I legit wasted it. Looking back, you know what? I think it was something I had to go through just to understand and become smarter with money and be able to kind of be a better, money manager, and really to kind of set an example that I think is needed, to be honest, for people like me who want to do good, be paid well for it, and also be smart about their money. And so I was like, oh man, I've made it. I'm never going to fly economy again. I'm going to, buy all the nice things that I've really never treated myself to before. I moved into a very expensive apartment in New York. It's a known thing that New York is already very pricey. I moved into a very pricey apartment. And the rent for a year was more than the salary I'd made at my job, right? And so I also did things like got a really fancy gym membership. To put this into perspective, it's the same gym that J-Lo works at when she's in New York. So I did all of those things. And it was fun. It was cool. And then I was like, wait, why do I have so little money in the bank, right? And so that was a year that really taught me a lot about, okay, Louisa, let's rein it back in, because it really is not about how much you make. It really is about how much you keep. But it helped me, I think, I'm sure there are healthier ways to do this, but that was the way I had to go through. I've always been someone who likes to go through extremes, and that's how I learn. And that really taught me, hey, yes, you can have the nice things, but we don't need to go crazy with this. And so, I think that was incredibly useful for me also to just realize this whole mentality that you might see from a lot of people online, where it's, hey, let me show off how nice my stuff is and how much money I can spend. If that's what they want to do, good for them. I'm not going to judge. Definitely been there. But there's also a lot more, a lot of other ways that you can choose to live the life that you want to live. Let me just put it that way, right? And so what that really taught me is, so if I had to go back and redo it, I knew this when I was working a job, and it just completely just flew out the window once I was making some decent revenue in my business, which is, that common advice, if you get like a raise in your job, you only spend a portion of that and then the rest you save so that you don't have lifestyle creep, right? I'd done that every time in my job up to a good 6-figure salary, but then it just completely new level. I made money that I had kind of thought about but never dreamed possible, and it just, all the wisdom was like, whoa, right? I hired like the fanciest lawyers. I hired the same law firm that Kanye uses, or one of his law firms, and I hired one of the best, priciest accounting firms in New York. And those are actually really good decisions, but it was an experience that I had to go through. And again, looking back, I don't know that I could have done it any other way. I didn't really have anyone who around me at the time who had gone through that and was able to give me some life advice, like, Louisa, maybe calm down. And even if they had, to be honest, I don't know if I would have listened, if I would have been open to listening to their advice, because of everything that I went through. And so that's why nowadays I hope through teaching, through talking with you guys, through teaching my students, my clients, and just setting that example. I'm an example of, hey, yes, you can, have a great income, have a great business. You can invest and splurge on the things that you love, but let's have some sort of balance there as well, right? And I mean, after that second year, I had to do so much work on myself to forgive myself for wasting a lot of money, to teach myself how to be a good money manager. And so it was just a lot of okay, made the money, wasted it. All right, now let me learn how to handle it, and so that the money I make in the future I can put to a better use. And so those are just my insights for the money piece, or a small part of it that I wanted to share with you guys today. Point number 3, the last point that I want to share today is basically this is. Okay, so I'm going to share it and then I'll elaborate, which is, as you guys know, my background is in engineering, right? And I was an engineer by training in college, and my first job was as an engineer for the space station. And basically so the way I think is very systematic and logical, and I'm always about, okay, what's the most systematic way to do something, right? And you guys know me. Those of you, I mean, quite a few of you here have known me for quite a while, and you know this is something I always talk about. And I have lots of great systems in my business. That being said, if I had to go back and redo it, something I would do in a more balanced way is spend less time on the systems and more time on the non-systematized, non-automated pieces. So the reason why I was like, I want to be careful how I explain this is because I don't want anyone going away thinking, look, I'm not going to build the systems for my business. You absolutely should, right? Systems for traffic generation, sales, all of that, running your business, customer support. I mean, all of those things I've talked about before. That being said, quite a few of you know I was obsessed with systems in like the first 3 to 4 years of my business, right? And what did that look like? Where I would kind of disappear for months at a time because I was so busy. Like, by disappear, I mean I wouldn't, show up on social media consistently. I wouldn't be emailing my list consistently because I was so focused on, okay, I need to sit here and I need to fine tune this funnel. I need to test 10 more webinars. I need to think of, 5 other ad campaigns that I can run. What are all the optimizations I can add to this funnel? And I did that on and off for about two to 3 years, right? And yes, that was needed. It got me to where I am today. I've got really great systems. I learned a lot of really amazing things and condensed, what people do in quite a few years into 2 years so that I can better teach it. But if I had to go back, I would say that's something that I would try and find a better balance of, because the truth is, yes, systems, you do need them to scale your business, but at every point in your business, especially with a coaching or course business, right? And especially in the earlier years, I mean, always really, I was going to say in the early years, but really always, what really drives your brand growth, your sales, is connecting to as many people as possible. And what this reminds me of is, Gary Vaynerchuk, who talks about this a lot. And there are a lot of things he says that I don't agree with, but I do agree with how he says, look, I'm personally reading as many of my DMs as possible. I'm personally responding to as many comments as possible. And even if he's not responding to all of them, even if he's not creating all of his content, he has a massive social media team managing his social media accounts, there's still, he makes time to focus on that personal connection. And that's something that I really didn't focus on enough in the first few years of my business. And again, this is a part of just the way I think, right? I'm all about the systems. I've tried to improve that over the years, as you guys know. And I mean, growing up, really, my parents were kind of antisocial a little bit as well. And so that's the way kind of I was brought up. Not blaming anybody, just saying, kind of sharing a little bit of my background, because I know I'm not alone in this, where my parents were like, look, study hard, don't go out and party, just do your thing, and that's what you're going to do to succeed. And a lot of us are taught that, right? Study hard, get into a good school, put your head down, do the work at work, and you'll get the recognition that you want. And so in my mind, how that translated into building my business was if I put my head down, I create really great products, I create really great systems, I work on my copywriting, my marketing, and my sales, that is going to go ahead and really grow my business and be the best way to do it. Again, there's a time and place for all of that, but what shifted is that I realized, okay, yes, you need to do that, but that cannot be the sole focus of your business, because businesses are built on human connection. They are built for people, right? By people. And so if you're missing that human piece, then you're not going to go that far. And so, over the past, I would say about 2 years, I've really kind of shifted that. And yes, I had the systems at that point, and I've continued to focus on my systems, create more courses and things like that. But now I make it an active part of my day pretty much every day during the weekday. I shared a story about this on my Instagram yesterday, but I make it an active part of my business pretty much every weekday almost, to either do a live stream or check my DMs on Instagram or do a post or do a story or do some combination of all of that, so that I'm always, just in touch with at least some people. Again, I'm not perfect with this. I can't speak to everyone who emails into us or DMs me or comments. I try my best. But in some way, shape, or form, I make it a priority to stay in touch and have that human piece, because that really is kind of the core of how you build a successful business, right? Okay, so that's the third thing I wanted to share with you guys, which might be a little bit surprising given how much I always talk about the systems and processes and scaling. But I wanted to share the other side of that, where I feel like I overdid it in the first few years of my business, to provide that, again, that personal perspective that I wanted to share with you guys today. So those are the three things I wanted to share. It just felt like what I wanted to share and needed to share with you guys today, a little bit more personal. I mean, equally useful, but just a different way. And, things that really are just my lessons gained through just a lot of experience and blood, sweat, and tears, right? To be just helpful to you as you are growing your business and developing your vision.